So my goal today is really to try to convince you to try to learn more about OCS, give you a quick overview, and I'll tell you at the end of the talk how to do that over the course of this week. Even though Chris and Greg this morning stole our slide and our thunder, there's still some information they didn't disclose, so we're going to get out of that. So let's get started with a quick agenda. As I said, I'm going to give you a quick overview for the people who haven't heard about OCS. There should be rare in the room, but we have a lot of new people attending the conference, so I'll give you that. Then we're going to go over the release, the first release of OCS, and really address what's going to be available in that release for OCS as a platform as a service and support for partner application. Thank you so much, Paul Kaiser, department lead. So I'm going to go through a couple of scenarios. I'm going to show you the different components, show you a quick teaser about how to use the data once it's in the OCS, and then we'll talk about the go-to-market. We're going to be releasing in a couple of weeks, and then I'll talk about the roadmap, and that should be enough for tonight. And then over the course of the week, you'll see reference to many different talks and presentations when we go deeper in the different aspects of OCS. So let's start with the overview. You've seen this one this morning. The positioning is really tackling the scope, bigger scope of data and complementing what people have on-prem with a classic PI system. I'm not going to talk more about that. I'm going to say the same thing Chris Felt said earlier in this room. OCS is not the PI system you know, hosted in the cloud. That's something completely different from a technology perspective. So we took advantage of the cloud capabilities in terms of scaling out and having unlimited compute power and storage. So it is a brand new development. We started about 5 years ago. It's been a long journey, and trust me, even though I like the journey, I'm really anxious to get to the destination. So that's going to be very cool. So it's really different. It's massively scalable, as Greg alluded to this morning, and we're going to go over that later again this week. It's very flexible, it's resilient, something we maintain and manage, so you don't have anything to do, nothing to deploy, you just use that. You can think of OCS as a solution like, I don't like comparing ourselves with other technologies, but Azure Time Series Insight or AWS Time Stream or MongoDB or Cassandra or InfluxDB. We got a lot of cloud-based time series database out there now. So that's really the goal of OCS is to, within the OSIsoft ecosystem, provide our existing customer a way to also experiment with the cloud and also do more without deploying more. So that's where we're going with that. However, as Chris said also for EDS, that's something that's very complementary to the existing PI system. So we're going to have a high affinity between the on-prem system and the edge system and OCS. So we're looking at OCS to be a way to push data outside of the boundary and outside the corporate firewall. So you can play with that, you can experiment with that, but also sending data from the secondary network, even though it's only 15%, as Bright said, to OCS, so kind of mimic an IoT platform, even though we're not doing that. We want to be capable to centralize more data from more places in closer to technologies in the cloud where you can do machine learning, deep learning, cognitive services, quantum computing. I mean, all the innovation in computing is happening in the cloud first, so you want to have your data as close as possible to those places and experiment with that. Why OCS? Big overview. Well, because with that you have all your data all available all the time, anywhere, whenever you want to look at it. So that's one of the value for that. And with that, obviously, it empowers you to use that data in a different way because there is no constraint, no IT constraint, no firewalls constraint. You can deploy it, it's scalable. You can use a lot for a couple of months, almost nothing for the next month if you want to. So we give you a lot more flexibility and resiliency, and then you don't have to deploy anything else. So you just sign up for it, you use it, and you don't like it, you stop, and if you like it more, you use more, and then everybody's happy with that. And the other thing is because as a multi-tenant architecture, we're hosting multiple customers and partners and vendors in the same ecosystem within OCS. There is this possibility to connect with other people. And as Pat said this morning, the more people look at the data, whether it's within your company or across companies, the more value you can derive from that. So that's another very important aspect to OCS, to have this rendezvous point for all the data, for all the people that can actually leverage that data and derive value from it. So we had 4 initial scenarios for SES Envision. The first one is partner as a platform as a service and enabling partner apps on top of OCS. We're going to dive into this one because that's the first release objective. The second one is self-service data science enablement. If you want to think about aggregating more data into OCS and doing some machine learning or deep learning or AI using R, Python, and code, we're going to have ways to massively scale that data and make it, prepare it for data science. There'll be a talk on that on day 3. Another one is remote monitoring application. I mean, again, collecting that data from places you couldn't put a PI system or you could barely put an interface, but you can put an edge data store, you can put a connector or something, and set that data directly to OCS. And then with the next set of services coming up, be able to visualize the data, do some calculation, other things. So essentially lighting up this dark data from places where there is nothing and deployed today. And the last one that cut across the 3 previous scenarios is really having these connected communities, this place for sharing the data across tenant, across account, and with multiple people. So we're going to focus on the first one. So how does that look like for a standard asset owner or industrial operator? Well, essentially, as I said, it's like using any platform that you might have seen from Azure or Amazon or Google or their competitors. So essentially, you have a place to experiment. You send data from your existing system if you have them, from multiple systems if you want to, and also from other places when you couldn't get the data. And then you can do programming, and you can develop your own application. You can connect that to other platforms. You can think, for example, maybe a ticketing system with Salesforce, stuff that we wouldn't do, but you can experiment and play with those technologies. Okay, so that's probably not the majority of people that are going to go with that use case first, because a lot of you don't have a lot of development capability in-house. So you want to configure something and get it to work without programming. But some people do, and there is some specific capabilities within OCS with multiple indices and different complex type that I'm not going to get into. We'll talk about that on day 3 in developer talk. That can really, for some use case and scenario, can be very compelling for some users to play with. The second one, which is really the one we hoping is going to have a lot more traction, is really bridging the last mile between the data and the application and solution that our partner community can deliver to you. So historically, it's been a challenge for those partners and for you guys to have their application inside of different side, being maintained, being updated. And we think, again, that OCS is going to be a great place for having that integration taking place and for you to experiment with all the partners you can think of and have them ready to deliver their application. So what kind of application? Well, essentially, if you look at the partner app, most of them, they're doing machine learning, they might be doing artificial intelligence, pattern recognition, cognitive services, process simulation. There is some industry-specific application that they have in oil and gas and pulp and paper or metal and mining. So there could be generic applications. Think about condition-based monitoring or things like emission monitoring, other things. So essentially, those partners, they have those apps. They just need access to your data to run them. And how does that look like for a typical industrial operator? Well, from a single place within OCS, they can share data independently with multiple vendors or the same data with all the same vendors and just very quickly have those vendors show their capabilities and have that integration being done from a central place. Also, the same application can run against all the multiple sites from a large corporation as long as the data they have is pushed into OCS. And some of the partners will also complement that data using edge sensors as well. They can help you do that, or you can do that yourself. On the partner side, that's the other way around. It's like now they got the opportunity to have access to a pool of customers to which they can show their value and application. And again, the same thing how we do, they have a single place to maintain one application, always up to date for all their customers, and quickly push update to those applications, delivering more value. So, I mean, being in the cloud makes a big difference in terms of development and update, because there is one version for everyone running at the same time, and that version can be updated and patched and very frequently. Our current release cycle for the cloud is at least every 3 weeks. We're pushing new updates, but for some UI component, that's happened almost every day. So who are those partners? So we've been in a preview for about 12 to 16 months, depending who are. The most current playing with the platform are on the slide here. Most of them are in the product booth. They can show you their integration with OCS, the work they've done with some customers already. And we're going to add more as we go, completing the preview and moving forward. Now I want to move to what are the components with OCS in the first release. So essentially, as I said, the bulk of the platform is really what we call the sequential data store, which is we might want to call the historian or the data archive. And that's really the bulk of the platform because that's where we get the scalability, the flexibility, and the resilience of storing the time series data with like high throughput and ingress and egress as well, a lot of capability, removing a lot of the limitation we have in the PI system, natively supporting future data, complex type, no compression or compression, lossless compression. So that's really the bulk of the engine we worked on. And of course, you need to feed that database with some data. So the second one is really the ingress. And I think we already touched on all the possible ways you can ingress data within OCS, but one of them, the most flexible one being OMF. And OMF is going to be used by all our tools from data collection. Chris Phelps talked about that this morning. So essentially, custom OMF application. By connector, we have some beta version of connectors generating OMF that can be connected to OCS. We have open source with FogLamp and Dynamics. And the Edge data store is going to be also capable of generating OMF and be connected to OCS. Okay? And of course, we're going to have a native connection from PI system because we know both ends of the solution. And we want that to be highly performance. And Janelle is going to come in a minute to talk to you more about that. What else do we have? Of course, there is a lot of administrative component to that. So for authentication, how you get into the platform, how you authenticate users. So we're supporting 3 identity providers from the get-go, Google account, Azure AD, and Microsoft account. And we'll be adding more depending. So that's very flexible. It took us quite a bit of work over the last year to decouple completely from Microsoft Azure and make sure we can support a very flexible authentication mechanism to support the different ways people want to authenticate. And as Chris said, I mean, that's very easy. You can have very strict rules for people internally to use your Azure AD and maybe invite temporarily some contractor using Google account for the time they need to access to the data and still within the platform create roles and access control to different objects, the streams, the namespace that we have within OCS. On the programming side, we got all those APIs you see within the customer portal. They're APIs we use to build that portal. So pretty much everything we built and delivered to you could be rebuilt from the scratch from if you wanted to. So that's a very rich set of APIs that pretty much do everything. And for people who want to start programming and interacting with the platform, we have a rich set of code samples in different languages you can use with a GitHub repository. You can access that and play with the platform as well. And that's not it. I mean, that's just the start for the release. We're going to have some other services in preview, like data views, and some other services we're working on to complement to get to an equivalence of functionality that we have on the PI system. It'll take us a while. We're not trying to compete. We're trying to still support stuff that needed to make OCS very valuable. So you can think about context. I mean, there is some basic way of putting more information than just time series data in OCS, but we need to add more, something to link those streams and have objects to represent assets and other things. You can think about, of course, visualization. Now we have like bare-bone visualization, just validate to get the data in, but we need more. The sharing needs to be improved. So now there is easy sharing through programmatic access between accounts, but we want to make sure that people can actually have a UI and select a set of stream or object or displays and just share that with somebody else from a different account. So those things will come along as we go. Now I want to get Janelle to come and tell you a bit more about the native integration with the PI system. Janelle?
Great. Thanks, Laurent. Actually, I don't need that.
You don't need to?
Yeah, no, just, well, you can advance me. I just have the one. Thank you. So, yeah. Just,
I need to click still.
Yeah. So, as Laurent said, my name is Janelle Minich. I am the technical product manager for the PI to OCS software. And as he said, this is the way that you will be natively transferring your data from your on-prem PI system up into OCS. And I like to think of it as something that's central, simple, and secure. And so let's talk about that. A little bit out of order on my slides, but central configuration means that you can, you can configure and manage all of your connections from your on-prem PI system into OCS. So you get to pick out who your users are. You get to determine the transfers that you're going to do, what you're going to transfer from, meaning which PI server you're going to connect to and bring that data up, and which data you're going to bring up, what real-time data. And that's all centrally configured in our OCS portal. It's simple. It's really easy to use. It takes about 5 minutes to install the software on-prem. I'm going to actually be running through that full demo of what that looks like on our talk on Thursday, if you want to take a look at that. It's very easy to do. As I said, it does run on-prem, and it is off-the-shelf software, so it's not custom code that you have to manage and maintain. You can trust OSIsoft to keep that up to date and running. And it's secure. We are employing claims in the cloud. You saw some of that this morning with Chris Nelson's demo. You might have seen it in our booth already, but we support identity providers such as Google, Microsoft Azure, Active Directory, and Microsoft Accounts. So you can enable your users in your organization as well as users outside of your organization to quickly and easily get that data without having to worry about firewalls and things of that nature to get in VPNs and so forth. And when we pull the data from your PI system on-prem, we use the Windows accounts that you're very familiar with to authenticate there. So it's very secure. And I guess the last point that I'd like to make about PI to OCS is that it's the best in breed. So just a show of hands, has anybody here ever used PI to PI? Anybody? Yep, okay. How about one of our connectors? Anybody ever use a connector? Got a few, yeah, good. Okay, so this is sort of like that, but maybe the next generation. So it's a little bit smarter, a little bit faster. You don't need to manually configure so much when you're setting it up. So that's a little, very high-level overview of PI to OCS. With that, I'll hand it back to Laurent.
Thank you, Janelle. Yeah, so we're going to be both back on day 3 to show you how to get from 0, no account, to a couple of thousand points in OCS within minutes. So that's going to be exciting. So what if you want to send other data? So just a couple of slides to show you like a teaser of different functionality. I'm not going to go to all of them. But the first one is that we talk about OMF, and there is an OMF editor within OCS. So when you sign in, you can get your account. And the first thing you can do is that I don't know what OMF is. Well, you can play and create OMF messages and validate them against the internal OCS OMF endpoint. So before you start getting your application or from the data store, you can actually quickly validate the different OMF messages and within OCS and make sure they're gonna see. If you have data coming in from another system or somebody built something, you can reverse engineering what they sent and look at the payload from the OMF messages they could have sent using the same editor. So that's really very useful, really helps jumpstart you to build OMF application. Another one is a storage explorer. So if you got the data either from OMF or from the PI to OCS component, there is a quick way to look at all the stream created and quickly train the data over a period of time if you want to. So, I mean, it's by no means a real visualization tool, but a quick way to make sure that you can see the data and you can be assured that we did it the proper way. Probably the next thing you want to do when you have data in there is just manage access control. So again, you can define roles. We have predefined roles, the basic one like the super admin and the basic member, and you can define anything between custom roles. And then for each of the stream and the object, you can assign specific access to those objects for different roles. So that's probably where you're going to say, okay, I got this set of stream be accessible for that partner. Those people within my company access all the streams. Those ones are read-only for those streams. So that's where, I mean, a lot of the platform out there have security as an afterthought. We think that's super important because we've seen people going fast and then they're stuck because the platform is not like fully secure. I mean, from the get-go, we want to make sure you have the capability of securing all the data before you can share it and use it. Moving on to programming with that. Again, programming could be difficult. I'm by no means a programmer, never been, never will, but I can play along with using the what we call the API console. So all those REST API, we have a tool called the API console, and you can exercise and play with those REST call, whether you're getting the data, or you're putting the data, you're patching the data, or posting anything on the different objects. That's come very handy to interact before you actually get into your Python script or R script or VB application or Java application. You can really play with the API within OCS itself. And then to be more complete, we also have code samples. And as soon as you get an account, all those code samples, they're given to you within the context of your own account. So you know which account, which namespace, which credential you're supposed to be using. So it really speeds up the way you can use those code samples. I'm going to move to go-to-market. We've been talking about CS for a couple of years now, and people are saying, okay, how much does it cost? And I'm not going to tell you how much now, but I'm going to tell you enough for you to be very interested and talk to your account manager. So essentially, we're looking at general availability for June 1st, so that's a couple of weeks from now. So I'm super excited. That's a definitive milestone. I said, yeah, the destination to me is very important, more than the journey on this one. The licensing and price is going to be by subscription, so that's a platform as a service, software as a service offering, so there is no perpetual license anymore. We're going to have a 6 months promotional offers for people to get used to the platform, to understand their usage, and how much they want to commit next with the platform. And that would include forever at least a 30-day free trial, so people can play with the platform after 30 days, say, nah, it's not for me, or I don't know enough, before they commit. So I think we feel that within 30 days, especially with PI OCS, that's going to take a couple hours to set up. That's plenty for people to play with and also get a partner connected, so really give it a try to the platform. The usage is going to be based on data stream access. So that's a bit of a departure from the standard licensing for the PI system, or you pay for all the stream. Now we're only going to charge you on the stream you use in OCS, and we'll let you put a lot more data than what you access. So probably a factor from 1 to 5 or 1 to 10. So we kind of repeal the ingress tax, okay? You already pay for putting data in the PI system. If you want to put it in OCS, you're not going to pay again. You're only going to pay when you're looking at that data. And when you look at that data, it can change from day to day. It could be 1,000 streams today. It could be 10 streams tomorrow. So it's going to be flexible. And we're going to average that over a period of a month and let you know in real time how much you consume. And I'm not going to give you the price point for that stream access, but it'll be available in a couple of weeks, so you can talk to your account manager and you get definitive pricing along with the term of use and the SLA. So everything will be all packaged and available in a couple of weeks to be ready for GA. And last thing in terms of go-to-market, the initial deployment is going to be in North America only. So the cluster hosting all the data is going to be in the West US region. But by the next conference in Sweden, we'll have also deployment in Europe. So people who have in-country constraint and regulation, the data shouldn't leave. At least we're going to support as well with European customer. And eventually, over time, now if we can do 2, we can do multiples. So we'll probably have more cluster in the US, and maybe we'll move to Asia Pac and other places as the customer demand requires. In terms of the roadmap, using the same layout we use for the other products. So what we're developing now, I guess we're very close to GA. So the partner app development, the ingress from device, PI OCS data transfer, and data view is going to be, for data sense, going to be in preview. So that's for the GA release. What we're looking at next is having a better trending experience than the one I showed you, something more flexible, not a full-fledged PI Vision experience, but at least more capable trending. Having a data sharing experience that's going to be UI-based, so instead of giving somebody some keys to access some stream, we're going to say, okay, now you have a kind of a virtual account, we call a community account, where people can actually put in objects. It could be displays, it could be views, it could be streams that can be shared by multiple accounts or just a single account. So we will build that as well. We're going to have EDS can already send data to OCS, but we're going to have a management experience that's going to be closer to the PI to OCS features, so a better affinity and management between OCS and EDS, and support the European data center for PI World EMEA. What we're looking at doing next, started researching, is like more visualization. So if you think about doing like fleet analytics for large set of assets, it could be a solar farm, it could be a wind farm, it could be other things. Now we want to have more compelling visualization for that, not just trending. we want to extend the little context we have, and we're starting working on that as well to support both visualization at scale and doing other things. More enhancement of data views, and the community is going to be expanding the way you can actually share the data and track data with other people. So before I close, there is a lot of pointers. As I said, this one is just meant to be a teaser. That's the first time we're doing product talk on day one. There is a lot you can see at the Product Expo. There is a lot of other talks you can go to. So we have 4 partners presenting using OCS. So we are going to have NetSoft on day 2 and Dymus on day 2 as well. On day 3, there is 2 partners, Thick and Petum, presenting with the customer. We also have a deep dive for developers on day 3. And then we have talk on data science specifically. So kind of a preview is going to happen on data science and OCS, as well as another detailed talk for edge to cloud that's going to show sending OMF messages from edge to OCS. And there is an OMF lab as well you can sign up for, where you're getting people through creating OMF messages and sending that to OCS. You've seen this one a lot. And we have 3.5 minutes left, so maybe we can take 1 or 2 questions if that's appropriate. I'm not even sure we have a mic. But if not, I'll leave it at that. I'll let you go out and have fun. Thank you for coming. That's super exciting. And I hope to see you later.